You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Wow, skin of your teeth time. Look who the cat dragged in. Hello, Mr. McDivitt.
Ross, I love being your favorite person, especially on this day.
What's this day? What's so special about this day? You get the third Wednesday of every month? Is that what you're talking about?
That's part of it. Part of it's just the fact that you get to look at me today and you didn't yesterday.
I know, and then you weren't here, so I was like, oh no, I wonder if it's going to be via the phone because it's like I wanted to spend quality time with you and gaze into your handsome eyes. And I got lost in the ocean that is McDivitt's eyes.
Hey, so it is good to see you, man.
It was fitting today in the Keto Freak News. Had a couple stories. One involving another lawsuit against McDonald's over someone scalding themselves with the hot coffee. And I mentioned, we get enough of this thing pretty soon. We're not going to be able to get a cup of hot coffee anywhere. Is that where we're going to go, you think?
I don't know. I didn't see this one.
You order coffee. You expect it to be hot. If it's hot coffee, you need to be careful with it. It's almost like shooting yourself with a firearm and going, I didn't know it was dangerous.
Ross, so let me tell you about the original coffee case with McDonald's was extreme. I mean,
what do you mean extreme?
I mean, it wasn't hot. It was
like scalding hot.
Yeah, there was an issue with it.
Okay.
And so, it caused burns that are not commensurate with what a hot coffee would be. So that was a total screw up on the part of McDonald's and their machine and how they were distributing that coffee. That's not even like saying, I got hot coffee, it spilled, of course I got hurt.
I got liquid magma.
Yeah, it's like that. It was like lava. Right. Now, I don't know about this new one.
And there was a similar story recently about a kid who had one of the chicken nuggets they ordered fall between the seat and their leg, and it burned their leg. And they also now took a lawsuit to McDonald's as well.
I don't know. Look, I don't think so.
It's too hot.
HBO did a really good show on this.
What was about the coffee?
About 11 years ago. It's called Hot Coffee.
Really?
Yes, and I recommend people watch it. It is a fantastic show, and it helps dispel a lot of the really pernicious myths that came out of that whole issue. And it really dives into what really happened. I just encourage, if you have HBO or access to it, maybe you can even see it on YouTube. Okay. I have no idea, but it's called Hot Coffee.
It'll cure the mentality if you have a mentality like me where like hot coffee on yourself silly. That's a silly lawsuit.
It'll do that.
Really?
Yeah, it really will.
Okay.
And listen, if it doesn't, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about it, but do watch the show. It's easy, it's fun, it's entertaining, and it really explains what happened with that.
All right. And then the second one from the Keto Free News, and I think I know the answer to this one. A guy suing a hospital because he has now suffered severe psychiatric trauma after they encouraged him to watch his wife give birth cesarean. And he says he is scarred forever. Now, he went on to say they did not force him like Clockwork Orange, where they strapped him to a chair.
And pinned his eyes open.
They pinned his eyes open. He had to watch the thing.
I still have nightmares about that.
They say, sir, you want to see this? Go ahead and sit back. Watch this. And they did it. And he said he is scarred for life. And he's suing. And this is where it gets ridiculous. And not like that was ridiculous enough, but suing for $624 million. A little bit much. Is there anything on that at all, even if it wasn't so excessive? I mean, because they didn't force you to watch. You could have at any time closed your eyes or run out of the room screaming mama.
Listen, I don't know. Maybe there's something else there. I don't like these lawsuits like this. It
gums up the system, right? There's more important things to work on.
It becomes what we're talking about, and it gives fuel to the complaints that there are too many lawsuits out there, that you can't do anything or you're going to get sued. And I wonder who the lawyer is who took that case, too. Maybe there's something there. Maybe they're just looking for some PR. I don't know. But I mean,
didn't dig in it, but these stories, often the person who brings the suit is also a lawyer. A lot of these times, because they're thinking
they represent themselves.
Yeah. Hopefully they get, hey, if I ask for $624 million, if I get $1 million out of the deal, I'm winning.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't respect that. Hey, you know what I thought you were going to talk about? What? I read this in the news too, and I almost sent it to you, but I thought, no, Ross will pick up on this. This is a tragic story, but there's a man who is, I think he's 78 years old. He's been arrested. He's been charged with second-degree homicide.
We did have that a few weeks ago where DNA tests basically pulled him into this, right? Or
no, this is totally different. No, he killed his neighbor's son because his neighbor's son was over in his yard trimming the trees that were growing over into her yard. So you got two neighbors. You got a boundary dispute. Trees on the 78-year-old's.
By the way, we've had that very same question brought to this forum several times in the last year.
I know.
Wow.
And so what happens is, according to the news, what he's doing is, this woman lives next door to a man, and his tree limbs have grown over her property.
Yeah.
So she enlists her son, who's presumably, let's say he's my age, I don't know. Like he's in his 40s. He's got an 8-year-old son. His son is with him. He's got a chainsaw, a couple knives, and he's out cutting down the limbs. He then goes through the gate into his into her next door neighbor's yard, and he's doing I don't know why he's in their yard. That's their issue, because then the 78-year-old's wife says, "Harold, the gate's open and your neighbor's son is in there cutting trees down." And so he takes a gun. It's loaded, but he doesn't have bullets in the first 2 chambers, he says, because he always keeps it that way for safety.
Yeah.
He has the gun behind his back. He approaches the neighbor's son, asks him to get off his property. The neighbor's son allegedly says, "Go pound sand." So he pulls the gun out, and then the neighbor's son apparently approaches him. So he shoots once, just a click. Apparently, he says the guy gets closer. He shoots the second time because he thinks that chamber's empty too, and kills the guy.
Wow.
That is... So let me just tell this to anybody who's listening right now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Maybe the guy's trespassing. Don't come out with a gun and just kill a guy. And his claim was, he said, "Well, I've got osteoporosis, and I was worried that if the guy pushed me down, it would hurt a lot." Wow. It's ugly.
Yeah,
and Ross, I thought you would have seen that one.
Dude, how'd you get? We were doing an instant. Hey, someone scalded their wiener with hot coffee, and then you're going all dark on us, dude.
Well, I don't know, man. Scolding your,
All right. Well, we ready to help out the people?
Yeah. Now I feel bad I brought that up.
Oh, dark.
I feel really bad for that 8-year-old son, though.
Deep river. Yeah, I know.
He was there when, this is just horrible.
That's happened, times that we had this story about, someone knocked on the wrong door, some kid did, and got shot and nearly killed.
Oh, yeah.
Just for being at the wrong door in the middle of the night. That's insane, man. Okay, we have multiple questions from citizens via email. One's interesting, too, because it involves no longer being able to pay with check or money order. Everything through your phone. And it seems like that's the new norm. And it's funny because we have the story from Citizen Mike about his question for you. But this follows a story today about Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who has this very angry take on these people trying to force you to have a cell phone and do your ticketing and everything through a cell phone.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Email questions, you can always get it to us. There's a quick link under the contact us. It says Law Frog. Click that name, number, and your question for Mr. McDivitt. We got 5 we got to answer today. I guarantee if you get us an email, we'll take care of it. Rock line's open as well if you have anything you want to add. 633-KILO. You can text to 633-KILO as well if you have any questions. First one today ties into it's topical because Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers has a similar take here this morning in a rant of angry tweets to the L.A. Rams franchise. So the question stems from Citizen Mike. My apartment complex sent out an email stating they can no longer pay rent with a check or money order. Instead, you have to use the app to pay. Is that legal? What if someone doesn't have minutes on their phone or doesn't have access to an app to pay the rent? Can they force me to use the app? And that, again, stems to the Chili Peppers bassist Flea angry because he cannot go to Rams games because he does not have a cell phone, which makes it almost impossible for him to see games at SoFi. And that's similar to the, concerts. We sent a rocker to go see Metallica recently, and it was all on the Geek Seat website, and there was no hard tickets or anything. So can they force you to go to this technology? Especially when it comes to paying your rent. That's the biggest question, I guess.
And I think on that one, I feel like that the answer might be kind of a little bit more clear, because what happens is when you sign a lease for an apartment, it's a contract, and what is in the contract is going to control during the terms of the lease. And so if it's in there that you sign it and it says payment's going to be made on the first of the month.
Well, what if this is changed midway through you've signed a year?
Exactly, and that's where I'm going with this too. And so it depending on what they've put in the original lease, it could be that they can't just unilaterally change that halfway through the lease term.
But let's start with the verbiage in the lease. If it says you must pay your rent monthly via this app, that's going to stick.
I think that'll stick.
Okay.
And I know you want to get to Flea in a second, but let's talk about this one thing really quickly.
That's more important. A mic is more important than Flea.
Thank you. And I agree, Mike. I hope you're listening. Keep in mind, what this apartment complex is doing, it sounds like, is they're putting out a notice to everybody. Everybody in that apartment complex is going to be on a different lease term. Like some will have started in January, some signed their lease in March. And so what they're probably doing is saying, going forward at renewal, this will be the new way to do it. unless the lease that everybody signed, no matter when they signed it, says that they can modify certain terms of the lease upon 30 days notice. Okay. And one of the things that they can modify is the method of making payment. So, not a lot of people send checks in anymore in the mail. I still do a lot of times, and a lot of people do bill payments.
I'm down to one. I do my mortgage payment.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, you need to actually change the payee. It's David McDivitt.
Yeah.
So you can send a check to me.
But ain't that dumb.
I sure look it.
How do you spell it again?
Yeah, 2 T's at the end. So the thing with fleet, this is interesting, and I don't have the answer on this. I think that a lot of these facilities that are providing access have to, accommodate certain things. And one of the things that I know a lot of them do still try to accommodate is if you don't have access to a cell phone, how do you get in with some type of substitute ticketing? Is it that you go to will call and you pick up something? And it could be that that's how they do that. I don't know at SoFi. Do they have a will call option where you can actually go and get some physical piece of paper that you then take to the ticket agent?
Is because it's their game. The folks who issue these tickets, it's like, hey, if you don't want to go through the process that we set up to get into this event, then
right,
don't come to the event. Yep. It's kind of simple. It goes back to like people who are upset about not being able to fly during the pandemic. It's like, there's no right in the Constitution saying you're right to fly. Yeah, you either play by the rules and you get to fly, or you don't fly, you don't play by the rules, you jump in your car and you just drive.
That's right. Keep in mind,
cut and dry.
Lack of a cell phone is not a protected class under the Constitution.
Because they can say, we'll just go to the public library where internet access is plenty and it's free.
Yes.
Go there, pull up your account, create your account, print off your tickets there, bring that in, That's Mr. Right. Flea. But if you don't want to jump through the hoops, then just don't come to the Rams games. It's kind of what they're doing, right?
Sounds like
you don't have any right to go to a football game.
No, and that's why the apartment thing is different.
Right? So if it's... But eventually it's going to become mandatory. So like even if you're like, let's say there's 6 months left in your lease, you could probably bellyache and not use the app for those 6 months. But after you sign a new lease, it'll be the verbiage that you agreed to in that lease, and you're going to be basically stuck using the app eventually, if not moving out, I guess.
That's right. And a lot of these apps are web-enabled, too. So it's not that you have to do it on a cell phone. Maybe they operate best on a cell phone. They're designed for cell phone users for convenience, but you can actually go to a desktop at the library and do it. And by the way, the other thing is, too, I know Flea's kind of on his high horse right now, but you can go to a game with somebody who has a phone, even if you don't have a phone. How do you think my kids get into all of these games?
That's a good point.
They don't have phones.
Flea, just find yourself a friend.
You need a daddy, Flea.
You need someone to adult.
That's right.
Around it. It's like, hey, Flea, let's go to the game. Really, Dad?
This is great.
Can we go see the Rams?
Can I get popcorn?
That's pretty funny. Well, very interesting, too, especially because that seems to be the norm. I got some mountain property. There's an HOA, and they've switched over, so it's no longer the $94 a year. It's via some app that goes to a different company because they outsource it now, so they don't have to have an accountant and stuff. Save some money. All right, I'll tell you what. Man, it's already 9:31.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Why don't you change your name to Giovanni? I trust a lawyer named Giovanni more than I would a lawyer named Dave.
David. It's David.
David,
to
sorry.
You now.
David McDivitt.
No, you've lost your Dave rights. I love Giovanni. That's a great name.
My name is Giovanni. I think this whole court is out of order.
This is awesome.
Right?
I love it. Ross, keep going.
Well, you're right, Giovanni. I say it's not guilty. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Acquit. So let's see. Giovanni's question. Got into a car accident back in May. Messed up my back. That's terrible. Back issues suck. Police report shows that she was at fault, but nobody was cited. Her insurance is Geico. They did an investigation and, surprise, came up with the conclusion that she was not at fault. My insurance company's doing an investigation now. Has not come up with a conclusion yet. He's working with an attorney, and he's curious if my insurance shows that he is not at fault. What's the chance he's going to get a settlement? And how much possibly could that be? I know you probably can't answer that. It depends on how much time he missed and
sure, injuries, things like that.
How extensive the injuries were, right?
This is not uncommon. We deal with it. This is not one of our clients, but we see this.
It should be. You shouldn't call anyone else there, Giovanni.
Yeah, Giovanni.
Come on, Giovanni. Come on, grow up, Giovanni.
Why did you call somebody else? Here's the thing. So the way that this works is if you're in a car crash and somebody, the police come, state patrol comes, they do an investigation, they determine that somebody's at fault, they will write a ticket. It is a criminal traffic ticket to the person that they deem is at fault.
But there's not always someone deemed at fault?
That's correct. Sometimes,
really? Like how often is someone not deemed at fault? Like
so
half?
A good example.
1 out of 10?
A four-way stop with stop signs. You're going. You think it's clear. You stopped. You go forward. And then somebody T-bones you. No witnesses. No witnesses. And now you could look at the point of impact and you could say, well, it's clearly I was already in the intersection because it hit me in the middle part of my car. But if it's the front part of the car, it gets a little dicey. Please come. They say, look, there's just not enough evidence to say that party A or party B is responsible. Regardless of who is deemed responsible by the police, you can still maintain a separate civil claim.
Okay.
So if I'm hit in a car crash, the police come and they cite the other guy, but that's all fine and good from a criminal traffic perspective. To that other guy, he now has to deal with the traffic court system and dealing with that ticket. But separately, I can make a claim against him and have hopefully his insurance company reimburse me for all of my harms and losses because of that crash.
Okay.
Regardless of whether he gets his ticket dismissed, regardless of whether he was even ticketed, I will be successful if and only if I can prove, though, that he was responsible for violating certain statutes under the civil code.
Okay.
So because there you have a situation that Giovanni is talking about where nobody was actually cited, does not mean Giovanni still doesn't have a case. But it does make me think that maybe there's not a lot of strong evidence when Giovanni makes his civil case that he's going to be able to prove that this other person was the one responsible. And so if you get to a jury and the jury let me tell you how juries work. Juries don't like to make a decision one way or the other if they don't actually have to. And so if they're presented with the fact that, there's some he said, she said evidence here, there's nothing conclusive, they'll just say, okay, well, both parties are 50% at fault. And at that point, under Colorado law, nobody gets any money. And if you're the plaintiff and you sue somebody and a jury comes back and says you're 50% responsible, you don't get any money. Now, if the jury comes back and says you're 30% responsible, you can get money. You don't get all of it. They'll still say, well, you get 70% of your damages. But if you get to that 50% threshold, nothing. And so Giovanni's lawyer may look at the case and say, look, I don't think there's a lot of strong evidence because what are they going to do? They're going to subpoena the police officer who did the investigation, bring the police officer into civil court, and they're going to get the police officer on the stand and say, what were your impressions? What did you see when you came to investigate? And they'll say, well, look, I saw that crash happened here and there wasn't anything conclusive. And you're not going to bring in the fact that so-and-so was or was not cited because you can't bring in evidence of a criminal ticket into civil court.
If the cop did not issue a ticket and at fault at the time of the accident, he's not going to suddenly step up in court and go, after thinking about it, I think this car was at fault.
They're not going to do that. This is why getting witnesses is so important. So for everybody who's listening, please, if you're in a car crash, you're in a motorcycle accident, you're hit by a big rig, let me tell you something. To the extent that you can physically do it at the scene, and it may be not possible because you may be pinned in the car or you may be very hurt, try to find out if there are eyewitnesses around, get their contact information. Do not rely necessarily on the police to do it. They have their hands full. They try to get witnesses. But there may be people around who saw, and that will be your only strong evidence to prove that the other person's at fault. So what Giovanni needs are independent witnesses who can say what happened. And if he doesn't have that, I don't think he's got a really strong case.
If he doesn't have that, all he's got is a sweet name.
He still has that. He will always have that.
So number one, actually the new rule, number one, call Dave. Don't call anyone else, first of all. Number two, track down those witnesses. Good tip.
And listen, that's what we do. We spend a lot of our time.
My man.
Ross, we spend a lot of time trying to track down witnesses. I'm just saying it's helpful for you in your case if you can even come to the lawyer and say, all right, these are the people who were there. And we'll send investigators out. We'll get interviews with them. We'll get sworn statements, things that we can bring in later into court so that the witness, keep in mind, a crash might happen and then it's 2 years before, we're in trial. And that witness may not remember everything, but if we get that sworn statement early,
it's good to go.
It's good to go.
Interesting. There you go. Great advice from the Law Frog. Let's see here. Let's get to gross homeowners associations. This has been another common question. Interesting though, too, from citizen Sean. Our HOA is trying to force us to either out of pocket or file insurance claims for $14,000 for supposed quote unquote recent hail damage. In our contract, it states that they cover all roof, gutter and skylight repair/expenses. Wow. So he's asked, can they do this? I would assume if in the contract it says that they're responsible, they can't do that, right? But I'm sure you're going to contradict me. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do here.
See the verbiage or what?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what we're talking about. Are we talking about an apartment building? Are we talking about a single-family home where there's an HOA that governs all of the homes in the neighborhood? Is this person a renter? I mean, look, here's the thing. Let me explain this. Let's just say you live in an apartment building, and that building sustains significant hail damage. Oh, are we going to try to get...
You keep on going. I'll see if I can get a hold of this guy here.
All right, so you've got an apartment building that sustains hail damage. The apartment building is going to have an insurance policy that takes and usually covers costs to repair, replace, deal with damage to common area elements, to the whole outside structure. Typically, people are responsible for their studs in on something like that. It does not mean, though, that they can't be assessed. There may be an assessment that comes back from the HOA to all of the owners, the individual property owners, asking for a contribution to then pay for the damages or to pay for the deductible if it's a really large deductible. And so a roof repair, whether it is predicated on a hailstorm and that's what triggered it, or if it's just years and years of decay, it's time we bake in the cost of a new roof. And there's going to be an assessment to help cover that, because if it's just a new roof over time, insurance might not cover it. You're just going to, the HOA is going to have to pay out of pocket for that.
We're getting a busy signal. When's the last time you got a busy signal on the phone?
When the person was busy. No, I know. Nobody's busy anymore.
Right?
You just go straight to voicemail. Sean, you gave us a funky number.
Right? Or you got a home line. And why do you still have a home landline there, dude?
It's the HOA cut off his phone. Because he hasn't paid the $14,000.
It's another HOA thing. The HOA says they must have a landline as well.
Does it say that in there?
So there are a lot of different avenues in regards to the verbiage in the contract and where you live and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know if I hate opining on this because I just know so little. Sometimes I can try to make an inference, but this one's tricky. Because, by the way, if he's a tenant, then the only one who can really assess anything to him would be his landlord, and that would be pursuant to the terms of their landlord-tenant lease.
Yeah, and that obviously falls on the landlord.
Right. So the owner, the landlord, is the one who's going to have the relationship with the HOA, because it always falls on the homeowner.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
When I die, I want to make sure my family respects my wishes for my body.
Okay.
Okay. Well, how do you do that?
This is David, the attorney here, McDivitt, the estate lawyer. You call somebody who does estate law, and they will work you can put something together. It's basically a document that describes what you want done with your body. Like, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated?
And then who makes sure they follow through with that?
Well, probably you would name somebody to be in charge of that. Like an executor, for example.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to hope. You'll be dead. You won't know, but you have to hope that they, honored it. But a lot of people have, I want to be cremated. I want my ashes spread so-and-so,
Yeah, I want to be dissected in front of a paying audience.
You want to be what?
Dissected in front of a paying audience.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. like a frog reeking of formaldehyde.
All right. Well, there you go. Appreciate your call, man. Who is this?
It's Scotty.
Thanks, Scotty.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Take care, man.
A little bit of weirdo, but that's all right. Whatever floats your boat. But what if someone does, so let's say he does something goofy like that, and then let's say it's his kid is the estate holder or whatever and decides, that's stupid, I don't want to do it. Are they legally bound then to follow through with his wishes? Is there any ramifications if you don't follow through with someone's dying wishes?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I've never dealt with that. I mean, some of these things are not going to be, I mean, there is a reasonableness to this too. I mean, if it's not like I want my body shot off into space, well, okay, did you leave the money as well to pay for that? Because that's not going to be cheap. And if you already laid out the infrastructure for that to happen, I mean, there are some things that just if it's not reasonable. But you're right. What are the requirements or the regulations that then dictate somebody's adherence to those last wishes?
It's all about follow through.
And Ross, another question is too: do they carry the weight of law? I mean, these are wishes.
That's a good point.
And so this is how you would like the things disposed of. But I mean, who has a claim if it's not followed through.
The best ever was Hunter S. Thompson. He had his ashes blasted in the woods outside of Aspen.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Johnny Depp who lit the cannon.
Yeah, a big long cannon.
Oh,
I saw the cannon.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, I have a family member who lives just down the road from where Thompson lived.
Can I borrow it?
The cannon?
Let me know.
I didn't take it with me. It thing was giant.
Into the woods with Hunter S. Thompson's cannon.
Like a carnival cannon.
All right, we only have a few more minutes. If you didn't get your question in this time, don't worry. We'll do it next month. So you can always contact us under the contact page on the main page at kilo943.com. There's a click away from the law fraud questions. All right, last couple, though, because we promised we get to all these. Eli, he's got work complaint, previous employer, still hasn't dispersed his profit share. He quit July, filed paperwork to have some put in rollover IRA and some put in a check. They have deposited to my IRA, but he hasn't seen the check part of things. Continue to check in, but they seem to keep, quote unquote, forgetting. I've even had to fill out paperwork multiple times due to the 90 days elapsing on his check getting there. Can he file what's his ERISA complaint? How does that work? What is IRSA? Sounds like a robot from the Transformers.
Yeah. No, and it is. It's an act that dictates how employers have to deal with insurance plans, retirement plans. I think it might cover this. I'm going to do something here. I don't like doing this. I'm going to punt. I'm going to,
What?
Eli. These are, you have to be.
Plus, you don't know how much money he's fighting for. It could be a lot of money.
It could be. But there are lawyers who specialize in ERISA issues. And when you're dealing with retirement plans, it is a very complex set of regulations. And
This is a good workplace lawyer. Like I know we've recommended her before, Donna Del Olio.
Right, her office, yeah, and she's got inclement weather, yeah. No, their attorneys who work in her office too. They do this, but I don't think that. I'm not going to speak to what another firm might do. I will say this: I think an ERISA complaint issue needs to be dealt with by a lawyer who specializes in ERISA issues, and it's not your typical workplace issue. Necessarily, where you're dealing with the Labor Act, things like that. This is very much a financial element to that, and so you've got to be careful. It's a lot with tax law too. I mean, I really try to steer away from tax advice because it's messy.
Especially if it could cost this guy a good chunk change. I would assume there's some money involved. Otherwise, it'd be a speedy idiot. It was just a couple $100. Yeah.
So I don't know what the employer's doing here. It sounds like they're trying to evade the issue, right. But I mean,
But I would imagine Eli,
are you sending certified letters, Eli?
I was going to say, if they get a letter from a lawyer or something like that, they'll be like quick to go, all right, well, Eli's not screwing around. Let's take care of this.
Eli, send a certified letter, but get a lawyer.
All right. We only literally have a couple minutes left. Let's see if we can help Patricia and wrap this thing up here. Patricia's question, very interesting. Couple of questions involving eviction, Mr. McDivitt. Patricia has a roommate who hasn't paid rent for 8 months due to physical disabilities. She's not receiving Social Security disability, but she has applied. Can I still evict her, or do we have to do mediation first? If I do evict her, her disability is approved, and I take her to court for back pay. Can her Social Security disability be garnished then?
Let me answer. Let me go in reverse.
So
I don't think
questions.
right.
Can
Yeah, I
kick her
don't.
out for not paying. More so, once she finally gets her disability money, can she have a piece of that?
My understanding is Social Security disability payments can only be garnished for things like delinquent child support, spousal alimony, court-ordered restitution to a crime victim, things like back taxes. If you default on a student loan, things like that. I don't think that they can garnish it for unpaid rent.
If she did a lawsuit against that person, then that way possibly?
Well, no, one way or the other. I mean, what you're talking about is just trying to garnish out of that particular thing. Yeah. If she's getting disability, but she's able to still work part-time too. I mean, I don't know what kind of disability she's getting, what the requirements are. They might be able to garnish her wages, but the actual checks that she's getting or the deposits she's getting through the Social Security disability system or the Social Security system can't be garnished for something like unpaid rent.
Oh.
That's what I think.
You're breaking Patricia's heart over here, Dave.
Here's the other issue too. Patricia, are you the landlord and then you just also happen to have a roommate, or are you the tenant and this is somebody to whom you have just arranged for her to live with you and then she pays rent? Is she also a tenant on the lease that you have with the landlord? Because if you're both co-tenants, it means you've both signed the lease. You can't just unilaterally evict your co-tenant.
Right.
The landlord can do it. And yes, the landlord can evict somebody for non-payment of rent. There's a whole formula that they have to go through. The mere fact that Patricia's on Social Security disability does not preclude an eviction process against her. It is a protected class for discrimination. You can't discriminate against somebody because they're on disability, but you can't. You're not prohibited.
On your disability,
right?
Just say, I can't pay. I'm disabled.
That's right.
What are you going to do about it? Interesting. I assume the way she words this question that she has a roommate who is not on the lease.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Because she's probably been covering those 8 months.
Yeah.
To make sure she doesn't get evicted. Now she wonders, and that's going to be more difficult if her name is not legally tied to that place. Patricia's going to have a very tough time getting money from her, right?
Absent some kind of agreement that they have between each other. And maybe that's a legal enforceable agreement, too.
What if it's only verbiage?
Well, there are ways that you can make a verbal agreement kind of stick. I mean, if you've got the old law school offer, acceptance, and consideration. I make an offer, you accept
with
it.
The hidden recorder?
Well,
that's my favorite.
Yeah, the hidden recorder. You walk around wired all the time, don't you? Everybody out there, Ross is wired. He's mic'd right now. I can verify that.
Huh. Wow, that's interesting. So I guess we always try to give you some information walking away from something, even if we can't fix it. So if you do have a lease, you bring someone in there to live in your place. Either get them to sign some kind of agreement or get them to officially get their name on that lease, right?
That's right. And then but make sure if you're going to bring somebody else in and have them sign an agreement with you that you're allowed to do that per the terms of the lease you have with the actual landlord.
Thank you for listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM, presented by McDivitt Law Firm.